Hey guys, so I drew a squirrel and I thought as the first in this series of whatever I'm going to call this, I'm not entirely sure, draw with me or weekly draw along, something like that. I just wanted to talk you through the process, and right now what I've done is I've edited and time-lapsed this just to condense it down. This drawing took just over an hour in total. This video is like probably going to be about 15 minutes or so, and I just like to talk you through my process. So what I'm doing just right now, you see there all the red lines and ellipses and stuff. That's just me going ahead and getting a feel for the, just like doing observation of it, just to kind of figure out what this squirrel looks like and breaking it down into different shapes. So we're doing the big circles, big ellipses, which I'm recreating now that I've got a better idea of it in my head. We've got one for the body, one for the head, and I'm going to lay out the legs, arms. I don't really know what you'd call them. We've got the front ones, which are these kind of cone-shaped guys, and then the back one, which has got this huge ellipse that forms, I guess, like the squirrels look like jumping around, don't they? So building all that up and adding all that in just to kind of get a shape for this. And then, of course, doing that big flowing tail at the back, which I really want to... I come back to that later on, but I really want to get that kind of big swoop action going on. Get those little ears in there. I think it's funny looking at it at this stage because it looks like a monkey or something. And also, just all we're doing at this point in the drawing is just laying down scaffolding. Scaffolding isn't part of the finished drawing, but it does help us put the building up. So it does help us, lay everything down. If you're drawing on like in traditional medium, I guess you do this in pencil and then rub it out once you've got the, maybe you're using a fine liner or something like that. I've put a muzzle on my monkey and just dropping the opacity of that to get it out of the way, but still workable. The next step is to just carefully define some of these shapes. I want to switch as well to using like a thicker pen to help just make it look a little bit nicer. Once you can work on line weight, that helps us out. But before we do that, I've just hopped back to the construction drawing just to map out the width of these cone-shaped front legs, because I think that's going to help us. That happens. In this case, this is me just like having to go back on myself, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, it might be a little bit trickier in traditional art because you've not got layers, and just adding the feet in there as well. So you can just very faintly see where I've put those in. And now that I'm using a slightly thicker, slightly weightier brush that I can taper off and add some line weight to, I think that's going to add some more complexity to the drawing, help with those smoother lines. And once again, just wanting to come back to my construction here, because the more you start to use it, the more I might notice, like, oh, I've done this wrong. I've totally done this before in traditional means. I was drawing like a portrait of someone. I don't know why I'm being vague. It was of my girlfriend, and like did the whole, like, set up all the construction and all that stuff, and it wasn't until like I was doing the pen that I realized her forehead was absolutely massive. So I had to redraw, like, just rub all that on the pencil layer and then come back in and do that properly. It's helpful. It's a pain in the arse, but like keeping true to your construction layer is so helpful. And now we can actually start to add in some of these details. Or start adding in the forms themselves. So starting off with the legs, we're just getting the shape of it. Later on, there's a lot of silhouette stuff which we're going to come back to. The only other video on this channel is on silhouette, so it is something that I want to get right here. But we're going to go through piece by piece and just block all these in. So front legs are looking good. Now let's add in the ellipse for this huge chunky back leg, which takes a couple of goes. I did cut out a lot of the mistakes in this, where I'm just drawing, I say rub out, Control-Z, draw, Control-Z, draw, Control-Z, draw. Yeah, that one. But some of them I've left in. It's just this, this drawing took over an hour. I wouldn't want it to be an hour of just me redrawing stuff. Particularly, I start skipping along a little bit when we get to texture and things like that, just for the sake of getting us getting us in and out. We need to be here longer than anyone wants to be. I want to show you guys. Hopefully, the point of this video is to show you kind of how to draw a squirrel, and then you can apply these steps to. I mean, I'll link this image in the description below. It's just the one from Wikipedia for an eastern grey squirrel. I think this is called. Once again, just there, I've realised the an error with my construction lines. I'm rectifying this now on the what you might call a clean lines layer, but later on, especially when I come to the tail, I might want to look at editing that construction layer just to keep everything consistent. Huge help. Like imagine like building a building, and you move the building over 60 feet and just keep the scaffolding back there. Not very helpful. But once we've started to define that back leg a little bit more, we can begin to move on to some of the head and facial features. But of course, we kind of want to tidy this up as much as possible. I don't know what these little... In my head, I was calling them the nuts. The little, you know, these things underneath the squirrel's butt. I'm not sure what they are, but I've drawn them in. I think it's the back leg, and then it may well be the nuts. But now we can move on to the head, which I've done a little bit more round than in the original. That's fine. I think I'm not too worried about that. Makes it look a little bit more maybe amphibian or something. Maybe like a frog. Frogs don't really have heads, I guess. A little more streamlined, but I think maybe in a different version of this I would block out the head a little bit more. And keeping true to our construction as well, adding on that big boxy, what would you call that, a snout maybe? That's important too. And also I'm realising that the legs are a little bit too chunky. So by just streamlining them, keeping that cone shape, I think that's a big improvement. Ears are coming nicely as well. We're going to add some more detail to those shortly. And that's the size of the eye. I think squirrel eyes are so cool. And even that takes me a few goes. And I did redraw these a few times. Eyes on any creature are tricky because they're so expressive, and any slight adjustment on that is going to make them look different. But we get the I guess what you might call the brow in there as well. I assume that is the kind of like the lid and the structure around the eye that we just added in. And then some more detail on the snout as well. I guess this is the squirrel's nose. Let me tell you, a lot easier to draw than human noses. Human noses, because they extend at different points in all three dimensions, they're tough. But that's looking good to me. And of course we can add in on the other side by following that construction line along. That was probably the most useful throughout this entire drawing. That's why I really can't recommend enough getting those construction lines, because I could just follow that around. Oh, yeah, this eye is sitting on top of this horizontal line, and that's where we can put the one on the other side. Later on, I think I'm going to move the eye just a little bit further down because it's a bit too close to the ear right now. And that comes in super handy again. For now, whiskers are straightforward enough. Just illustrating there that what you might want to do is draw an ellipse and have all of the whiskers draw out to the edge of the ellipse to just kind of give them that silhouette. But it's kind of beyond the scope of what I want to do with this drawing. I wasn't too not too bothered about doing that. And here we go. This is bringing the construction back into things just to keep everything consistent and to rely on this a little bit further as we go into the tail. Because it's such a flowing, such an organic shape that I think even in the finishing one, I mean, looking at this now, I think I'm going to change it in a moment. The shape a few times, just especially when I'm getting into the texture. But it's looking, you know, sometimes it's tough with these big organic shapes, particularly when they are, it's two lines there pretty much that are taking up the whole. It's like such a significant part of the drawing. It's quite tricky. But I'm happy with those eyes now that I've added a bit of colour to them as well. And this is a good time to do some more detail on the ears, which have these kind of like weird wiggly, I guess ears just look strange anyway, don't they? Like you look at a human ear, if we didn't have human ears and we had ears on a different creature, like another creature had our ears, you'd be like, what the hell's going on here? It's like all curving round and stuff. But just trying to copy out that shape as best we can. Which I think, you know, in hindsight, maybe I could have done a better job with that. But it's pretty much one of the last things for us to do before we get on to adding some texture here. Maybe just a few more changes, but other than that, I think we just want to just kind of square off might be the right word, just define the base of that tail a little bit more and how it connects. That's an important thing for the silhouette. And also I think maybe if I'd spent a little bit more time observing the anatomy around there, that would have been helpful. So speaking of silhouette, we're just kind of adding a bit more onto the tail and then kind of coming around and adding in all this fur. There was kind of no point in me showing you all this, so I'm just kind of skipping ahead with it. What I'm really focused on right now is the length of the hairs and the density of the hairs. They're gonna very soon. I'm gonna start spilling them over onto the actual the surface that we can see instead of just keeping it to the silhouette. You can see that happening now. Which, am I happy with this? I think the idea is there. There's a patch kind of where I'm working now, kind of where the tail folds over itself, that I could have added a little bit more density to. And I think if you guys are going to follow along and have a go at drawing the squirrel, I think that's definitely, we're going to come to the light and dark areas once we're done with the tail. And that could have done with a bit of attention. But for now, the reason why I'm not focusing on that is I was so focused on just getting the silhouette right, just making sure that we can tell that there is a layer of fur sitting on top of this little creature. I love squirrels. That's why I chose them to be the first one of these. And we can also use this texture just to define some of these sections that we might want to rely on colour for, which I think is quite handy. It's not perfect. And I think what I would want to do in hindsight is maybe just, instead of copying this directly from the reference, I'd want to kind of look at where my squirrel that I've drawn, that I've made my own, where the patterns of the fur are on my version, instead of copying the fur from the previous one onto a squirrel where that fur doesn't fit. So now the priority is a bit of line weight and sort of work on these dark areas. You can see I've added some darkness to the back foot, which is kind of really dominating. So I want to spread a lot of value kind of across the drawing. We've done that to the ear. We're going to do that to the underside of the belly. Pretty much any area that we can at all. And just in a moment, yeah, looking at some of these, whatever they are. They gotta be the balls, right? Surely. But yeah, just building up a little bit more of that texture back there. And a little bit more value in these areas that we'll be seeing a little bit more darkness. You can see I've not done like a full lighting pass on it. Right now I'm just adding a bit of shadow underneath because I think that's going to help place it in, in 3D space. That's the trickiest, the ever ongoing battle when you're drawing something on a 2D plane is convincing anyone that it's 3D. So any tools you can use to make to help show that it's in 3D is helpful. But just doing a final check now, I think that's where we're going to end it. So I'll put the finished piece, there it is on the screen. Taking this further, definitely lighting, colour. There's a few areas I want to tidy up, particularly with the tail. The tail's probably the toughest part of this piece. But all in all, I'm quite happy with it. So if you guys had a go at this, which I would really encourage you to do if you're if you're nearly 15 minutes into a video how to draw a squirrel, I have a Discord channel, a Discord server where you can post the art over there. Otherwise, that's going to be the end of the first of these sort of draw along tutorially, let's Harry has a go at drawing something videos. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, everyone. You can also check me out over on Twitch, where I stream my art journey, and you can follow along and learn along with me over there. Link is in the description.